I wasn't planning on it, but I think it's finally time to say goodbye to this place. And now the question is, will I miss it? Hey there, today I have an unboxing video, and in this video I'm going to open up two orders of comic books. One was placed with Midtown Comics, and the other with Things from Another World. And moments after placing this order, I found out this was going to be my last order with Things from Another World, specifically TFAW.com, as they announced the closure of their online presence. Now, in the notes of their goodbye message, the announcement of the closure of TFAW.com, they did say that their brick and mortar stores, where they have a few along the West Coast, those will remain open, but they will no longer sell comic books online. Now, I was very surprised by this because most brick and mortar stores, comic books or otherwise, have some sort of online presence, and they're just pulling the plug. They're just going to remove TFAW.com. They said any sort of outstanding pre-orders or subscription orders, they're going to process what they have and then cancel everything going forward and just operate out of their physical stores. Now, I have been ordering off of TFAW.com, Things from Another World, for several years now. They were my original pre-order subscription go-to place. I've bounced around ordering from a few different places to get modern books, but this was the original store where I set up my pre-orders. I was able to get retailer incentives and had very large orders that would kind of accumulate pretty good stacks of books that would sit in these giant cardboard boxes. And they love to use packing peanuts. And I remember opening those TFAW orders fondly. Especially in the early days, getting those brand new books as I was getting back into the hobby, and really had come to appreciate their process. But over time, what ended up happening was I found that as I was collecting data and running analysis, is that I was getting very good quality books, comics in great condition, but was quite expensive when you added up the bag and board service, the shipping. I still think they overcharge for shipping, as you'll see even in this order that I place, and really wasn't feeling any sort of discount when ordering new books, and also in the retailer incentives, the ratio variance. I was paying pretty much at ratio for a lot of these books that I ended up finding other places at somewhere between 10 to 25% off cover and ratio. So over time, I had just made the decision to move away from TFAW, but occasionally would find some incentives there, or they'd have a pretty deeply discounted sale on books, and I would still place orders from them, and I thought the service was great. Really didn't have any specific problem with them other than I think them being more on the higher end in terms of what you would pay for new books. So I'm a little bummed by this, but I think what will cheer me up is opening this order. And the reason that I'm opening up the TFAW order alongside Midtown is because I pretty much ordered the same books. There was one book that I was able to get at Midtown that I wasn't able to get on TFAW, and vice versa, but there's a lot of overlap between these two orders. These are new books, a few big retailer incentives, and I want to kind of compare and contrast the packing, the shipping, the costs. So if you stay to the end, I will show you what I paid for these books, and then I will also at some point show you my final ledger for my orders for Things from Another World in terms of the average raw book grade that I would screen these books at, and then also how many books I ended up getting CGC 9.8s from. Now, I have a number of books in my collection that I still ordered from TFAW that I haven't done anything with in terms of grading, but you can at least see up until now how TFAW stacks up, and I'll compare that against Midtown just to kind of close the loop on this video and comparing these isolated two orders against my all-time order data. But first, I need to get these two shipments opened up with some really great recently released comic books. Okay, here are the two shipments of comics that I'm going to open up. You can see the difference here. The top order is the TFAW order, and the bottom is Midtown. This is the standard Midtown Comics box that your books come in. And TFAW will often use this like thinner Gemini or Uline type mailer to save on shipping, but the shipping is outrageous. I was charged $18 for this, and I choose the cheapest shipping. They don't offer free shipping. Whereas Midtown, for what it's worth, I did unlock free shipping on this order. So that was one of my complaints going forward, was that as my pre-orders decreased over time, they ended up moving away from more of kind of like your standard UPS size box. And then it was like, as I distributed that shipping charge over all of the comics, the cost per comic, it just ended up being, like I said, about cover price or even slightly more by a few pennies. And I just felt like I wasn't really getting a good deal. Let me go ahead and unpack both of these, and let's start to look at the comics and compare the results, particularly the condition of the comics inside, to make sure that they made it to me without any dings, dents, or other damage. So here we go. All right, let's get into it. I'm going to start with the Midtown order. Before I do, just a little bit of a difference in the packing. As I mentioned, there's the Gemini mailer for TFAW, the standard like UPS rectangular box from Midtown. Midtown then puts their comics in that paper bag and then wraps it in some pretty thick bubble wrap. I actually keep that bubble wrap. It's my favorite, and I will often ship slabs using that. TFAW had no bubble wrap. It was just sitting there loose. The books were not even kind of taped down at all. And the honest truth is, I've had orders from both with damaged comics before, and so I would hope that all of these books that I'm about to show you are in great condition. It wouldn't surprise me if any of them are damaged because I have seen this in the past. Midtown uses the worst bags and boards to send books. They're always like undersized, so it barely protects anything. And then I end up paying extra for the TFAW bags and boards, and they don't match either. The bags are oversized and the boards are not. So, neither of them are perfect. But as I continue to collect data from both of these sources, I have received a number of 9/8 from them. So let me show you what I picked up. These two orders contain books that were recently released, like within the last month, and I was on the hunt specifically for some retailer incentives that all happened to kind of be released on the same day. And I found some at Midtown and some at Things from Another World. So let me show you once and for all the books. The first one from Midtown Comics. This is Catwoman number 74. This is cover art by Dan Panosian. This is an open order standard variant. But Panosian has amassed quite the following over the last couple of years. He was always popular, but I don't think he's been as popular as he's ever been. And this is what I was talking about with the Midtown bag and board size. Right here on the corner, you can see how the book hangs over the bottom. And this is just the bag. So as I press on the bag, you can see it goes right into the book. And there's nothing that you can do about it. This is what they do. And also look at this corner, right? On this one, the bag is bent and it goes right into the comic book corner. And so I have to take these out of the bag and board, obviously replace them with better ones, but this is usually how the corners get dinged on these. But to me, this one could have been a full art variant, 1 in 25 or 1 in 50, and I might have chased it down. Just gorgeous, stunning artwork from Dan Panosian. And what's interesting about Catwoman, too, is they will often put like two really popular cover artists and kind of alternate. One of them has like an open order variant and the other one will do the incentive, or maybe there's a couple of open orders and then they do a full art version of one. Right now, for Catwoman, it's Dan Panosian and Frank Cho, which is amazing. They've used Sousa Micah, Jenny Frizen, Jeff DeCall, and really just picking the best of the best for the Catwoman title. And I loved the cover so much that I ended up picking two up from Midtown Comics. The next one is Daredevil Unleash Hell, the Red Band edition. And I think the entire title is Daredevil Unleash Hell Red Band. There's not like there's a Red Band edition and not. Marvel started this whole Red Band thing recently where it's kind of a mature audience's story. We have reader discretion advised. Reminds me a little bit of like the Marvel Knights. It was supposed to be like a really super mature, like bloody, violent version of the comics. So this is called out with the Red Band. And I think they use it too to certainly provide a warning, but also just draw attention to it. And what drew attention to me on this one was the Ivan Talavera artwork on this cover featuring Elektra. I love myself a great comic book cover, particularly of a female character. There is something about this cover that I am in love with. This is just, it's stunning to me. I hesitate to say it's cover of the year. Not that I do videos of covers of the year or make you sit through those. And my goodness, I just, there was something about this. I knew as soon as I saw it that I had to pick it up. So just absolutely, it looks even better in person. And then when I found that book, I realized that there was a 1 in 50 full art retailer incentive, and I ended up picking that up from Midtown Comics. Unfortunately, got the nice Midtown sticker right on the front there, blocking this great art. This is polybagged, so I'll have to carefully open the poly bag and examine the final condition, but I am really hoping that this is a 9/8 candidate that I can submit with a future pre-screen, because I'm just in love with it. I'm in love with this variant, the Ivan Talavera artwork on it, and I had to have the 1 in 50. And so when I first saw that, that was the first idea I had, was let me figure out where that 1 in 50 is and try and build an order around that. And I'm going to do these a little out of order. I noticed on the bottom, I did pick up 2 copies of the regular cover A. Just gorgeous. So I have that. Now, along the same lines, same sort of like theory in terms of buying and chasing variants down, another cover artist that I'm always looking out for. And I recently submitted a pretty significant stack of books for her signature series event. So these obviously won't make it in time for that event. So I'll have to wait for the next round. But I tracked down Magic number 3, cover art by Jenny Frison. And same thing, I absolutely thought this was stunning. A cover of the year candidate, but is not going to beat out Daredevil Unleash Hell Red Band number 3. You're welcome to leave a comment and tell me which one is your favorite. But I thought this was stunning and definitely in the running for that title. And then, of course, Marvel got me again. And this does happen with some of their variants, where they will do a retailer incentive of that book with the trade dress removed. I know it's a little lazy, but I'm a sucker for it, and I end up participating. And here it is, again with Magic's face covered up. Thank you, Midtown, for that. This is the 1 in 100 retailer incentive of Magic number 3. And one thing I appreciate, when there is a larger retailer incentive, typically Midtown will send this semi-rigid holder along with the book to further protect it, which I really appreciate, because you can see there the bag and board is pretty much useless. So without this guy here, this outer semi-rigid holder, then that corner would have just been destroyed in shipment. So I really appreciate this and the additional protection that they gave the book. And that was kind of it, right? So I was in this mindset of tracking these incentives down and placing orders and still wanting to get some of the regular copies. And it crossed my mind to go over to TFAW and check them out. And so this will be my last order that I've ever placed with TFAW.com, so I can show you what I picked up. And here's where the overlap happens. I ended up getting 2 issues of Magic number 3. I was looking for another copy of that 1 in 100, but unfortunately TFAW didn't have it. But I was picking on Midtown. You know, TFAW's no better. Like I said, the bag is oversized. They use a smaller board, so the comic just slides around. And if that edge gets hammered in transit, then so does the edge of the comic. I'll never understand it. Look at the bottom too. You can't even see the board, the backing board, and you can start to see the comic kind of bleed through at the bottom, just slightly. But like, seriously, it just slides around. It's dumb. Use the same BCW bags and boards. Make sure it's super tight so that the comic doesn't slide around, and it should be easy, but everybody wants to go cheap and save pennies. But, you know, the cost of like customers complaining and sending those books back or trying to offer them a discount, I'll never understand it. I'm not saying that TFAW is closing because of poor customer support, but I'm like, that it should just be a no-brainer at this point, is spend a few extra dollars across thousands of comics to offer better protection. Again, Daredevil Unleash Hell Red Band number 3, the Ivan Talavera variant. I'll keep showing it throughout this video, and I don't mind at all. But this is just kind of a weird, wonky way of they package. They kind of wrap the poly bag around the bottom, and whatever. That was the open order version, and I was able to track down a 1 in 50, and I'm hoping the way they've packaged this up is different from the open order cover A, since this is a 1 in 50 and I spent quite a bit of money to acquire it. But no, it's the same. It's just like it's a regular comic. It does have the sticker that says it's the retailer incentive 50 copy variant, but it's just packed up like a regular book. This one, the poly bag is wrapped around in the top, and I can already see some sort of weird damage. That, I think, goes right through the bag onto the comic. There's also some sort of tearing right there. You know what? Let's just... what I'm hoping is maybe that's on the poly bag and not the comic. I'm going to have to really tear through this one to see what the final condition is. But I got a second copy of the 1 in 50. This was the one I was trying to chase down. I found it at both places, and I'm thrilled to have two chances, hopefully, at 9/8 on that book. And then the last one was a book that I found on TFAW, but not Midtown, and this is the 1 in 50 copy of Psylocke number 5. And then as I turn it over, again, it's the ridiculousness of the bag and board on this. Like, I can't believe that they think this is normal. You can totally see how it just slides right off the backing board. And what I will say is, at least Midtown, they will recognize the fact that these are more expensive books, and will want to preserve them appropriately. And maybe at this point, when I placed the order, TFAW had already known it was closing and just given up and just like, hey, we'll just mail it out. Doesn't matter. I mean, what are they going to do? Complain in a couple of weeks when they open the order? And if there's dings and damages, the website's offline. There's no way to contact us. But if I scoot it over just to kind of give it a quick glance, it looks to be okay. I think probably it'll end up maybe being a 9/6 that might need a press just because it has the wrinkly marble paper. But I think I'm in the clear on this one. So hopefully this ends up being that 9/6 with a press or a 9/8 candidate as it is. But those are the two orders. Really awesome, great covers. Love these incentives. I'm so glad that I was able to track them down. It's exactly what I was looking for. There's a lot of Magic number 3 here, 5 issues in total. And then the absolute stunner that is Daredevil Unleash Hell Red Band number 3. And you could see again that Midtown, this was a 1 in 50. So I got to hand it to Midtown and give them credit. I think if just by comparing the two shipments from both stores, I think Midtown wins this one. I don't even think there's a contest, and that's actually difficult for me to say and admit that I think Midtown packaged these books very well and shipped them to me well. So really appreciate that. TFAW, I think you can do better, but you're closing up shop, so there you go. But let me show you what I paid for these books so you can compare the cost from each, including different factors like shipping, the bag and board service, things of that nature, so that you can see specifically what I paid for each book and what the current fair market value of these books are raw, to see if any of these ratios are holding up. All right, here are the two orders that I placed on March 18th, 2025. Same day I ordered at Midtown. I ordered from Things from Another World, TFAW.com. We'll start with the Midtown Comics order. I was invoiced $203.06 for these 8 comics. And I was able to unlock free shipping from Midtown, and I did have to pay tax. So my actual cost here for that Jenny Frison Magic number 3 1 in 100 was above ratio at $123.19. I get worried sometimes, especially with the Frison variants, that the 1 in 100 starts selling for $200. So that's where I was like, I don't mind paying a little bit over $100. I of course FOMO over all of these, so I end up having to pay the price. But you can find this one online now, and it is around $199. So all in all, I think I did okay. And then if you look at the cover price fair market value in this column, you'll see right now it's holding at about $128. And that's based off of aftermarket sales and not necessarily like retail store sales. So a few dollars of value added to my collection if you're using the cover price fair market value. Now the 1 in 50 Daredevil Unleash Hell Red Band number 3 Talavera full art variant. Cover price is saying that that is below ratio at $41, so maybe things don't look good for that book. I don't care if I could do it all over again. I would buy the book again at $45 as I bought it twice, once at Midtown and once at TFAW. And then the open order books from Midtown were all cover price. So you can see the actual amount was cover price plus tax, as if you walked into an LCS and just picked them up off the shelf. So other than the 1 in 100 Magic number 3, all of these books are more or less at cover price or at ratio or just slightly under. So not a ton of positive value here from this order. And then let's compare it to the TFAW order here. This one's interesting because I ordered 5 books, and between the bag and board service and shipping, it cost $19.41 on top of what I paid for the books themselves, where I was invoiced a total of $130.72. Now, if I slide this over and show you the total cost, what this means is end to end, door to door, cost of the book, tax, and shipping, you'll see even these open order books are way above cover because I have to factor in so much for shipping, and I distribute the shipping or any other fees other than the specific tax on the individual book. I distribute that across the entire order. So just because I ordered a ratio variant doesn't mean I paid more to ship that than the other books. So that's where these open order books like the Magic number 3, my total cost is $7.81, which is kind of absurd. It's twice cover. And this is where the average cost per book just started to not make sense for TFAW, and I ended up moving away from it several years ago. And also, I really didn't like how they packed the books, so there's that as well. There was no additional charge from Midtown to send the 2 ratio books in that semi-rigid top loader. Psylocke number 5 and the Daredevil Unleash Hell Red Band number 3, those both were 1 in 50s, and then I ended up paying $53.15 for each of them, so well above ratio. And the Daredevil book, as I mentioned with Midtown, is currently under ratio at $41. Psylocke number 5 is holding up at $57, and I just did kind of a cursory pass across the different online store sources that I buy from, and that one is particularly tough to find. It is available in one place, but it's, I think, at $99, so it's already double ratio and sold out everywhere else. I can find the Talavera Daredevil book at a number of places, all for about ratio or just under. So in terms of scarcity or which one's more popular, the fair market value of Psylocke 5 is holding up. I think it's legit at $57. So even though I paid at ratio or just slightly above, it still looks like a decent deal, particularly if you're trying to find this online without going to eBay. Then I added $3.85 of value to my collection. So in total, just based on the fair market value, and again, factoring in tax, shipping, bag and board service, anything like that, I much prefer to track all of it so I can see my true cost. And for the Midtown order, it's a negative $10.06 loss by buying books directly from Midtown, and an even greater loss of $21.72 buying directly from TFAW. And there's something about the excitement of finding the book when you're searching on these sites and you come across and you're like, hey, I found it. Great, my 1 in 50. And there it is. It's $44.99. It's below ratio. Well, it's actually not. To me, that TFAW, I know I'm kind of harping on the shipping charge, but it's ridiculous between the bag and board service that is terrible. It's almost $20 to ship those 5 books. You know, I can ship a stack of maybe 4 raw books, maybe not 5. I'd have to weigh it, but if you use that Gemini mailer, you can send it USPS ground for somewhere around $6. So to get charged $20 and not even get any additional service from it's just kind of embarrassing. So I'm, of course, like sad and disappointed that TFAW is going away, but kind of no love lost at this point. I feel like I can kind of wrap things up, completely close the loop on using that as a source. But the last thing I want to share with you is how the store actually held up over time and how it compares to Midtown in terms of the average condition of the books that I receive. So every time I grade a book and I insert a row in my spreadsheet, and then I aggregate across all of the stores so that I can get some insights in terms of the typical condition of a book. And then I like to understand how many of these books am I sending off to CGC and how many of them are getting a 9.8. So let me show you the final tally for TFAW. This order hasn't been graded yet, but you can kind of see in general of all the books that I've ordered from TFAW that I have graded. Here is what I call my ledger stats, which summarizes my experience across all of the sources that I've ordered comic books from, whether I order online or buy in person. And this is the final tally where I have the sources sorted by the average grade. And then if there's a tie in the average grade, then I look at the percentage of books 9.8 and the total that I got in a CGC 9.8. But Things from Another World, I had ordered 2,367 comic books. I've graded over 2,000 of them myself, and I've assigned an average grade of 9.6157, so roughly a 9.6, which was one of the reasons why I kept ordering from them, was because, okay, I'm paying a little bit more, but I'm getting better quality comic books. And so that was part of my philosophy. I do this at many stores where I talk about Mile High Comics. I don't mind paying more to get a chance at some higher grade comics. Like, it's makes complete sense to me. It's common sense to me. Now, personal 9.8, over 1,000, which is roughly half, 49.46% of the books that I ordered from TFAW.com, I had assigned a 9.8. That's tremendous. That is so good. Not every book you order is guaranteed to be a 9.8, and I achieved such high quality results from them. And it amazes me, some of these comics are sliding around in the bag and board and they still come in and are 9.8 candidates. Of books that I have officially slabbed a 9.8, 29 of them came from TFAW, 1.43%, which is low just because the quantity, the volume that I ordered from TFAW was so high. And this is where Midtown kind of comes into play. Just, I'm not saying that I'm done ordering from Midtown. They're still open. I will probably continue to buy from them randomly, especially as I'm hunting retailer incentives and the demand for comics continues to trend down, that I'm able to find some pretty good deals there. So I'll most likely continue to order, but as it stands for now, this is where Midtown has TFAW beat. 51 of my 9.8 slabs came from Midtown, but I'd ordered 500 comics less over time from Midtown than I did Things from Another World. But then TFAW has them beat on average grade. Average grade from Midtown, 9.44. I understand that's near mint, but what drags this one down is I will occasionally get a damaged order. And a lot of the books I'm screening 7.5, 8.5, and that's what pulls down the average grade from Midtown. Because if you're saying, well, if the average grade is lower, why are there so many more 9.8s? Because Midtown can do that to you sometimes. They'll send you a stack of 9.8s and you love it and you place another order and then everything's damaged. And you can see this too in terms of the percentage of the books. Only a third of the books that I've graded from Midtown got a 9.8, whereas half from TFAW got a 9.8. So really interesting comparison here between the two. And what I would ask you is, if you're looking at these numbers, I realize TFAW is going away, but if you didn't know what the names of the stores were from and you had to pick which one you would want to order from, I think this is kind of a fun challenge. Because on one hand, you get a chance at a better condition book if you order from store one, where the average grade is 9.6. And you would personally give the raw book a 9.8 more often than you would store two, but you have a rate of 2x in terms of the total actual slabs that you've received back from CGC in a 9.8 that you've sourced from store number two. So if the goal is I want the highest grade comics, the best condition possible, whether I grade or not, I just want to have a nice high grade collection of raw books, I think store one is your choice. But if you want to roll the dice and try and get more of your books in a 9.8, it may feel a little bit hit or miss, then maybe store number two is for you. But I love this data. I love collecting all of the data and amassing it over time, because this is what really influenced me and drove my decision making in terms of where I bought books from. And one of the things that I didn't get into was sort of like the cost per book. And that was a number that really jumped out at me over time, because I ended up while I was getting higher grade books, it was costing me more, which I said I'm perfectly fine with that. But then when I started to compare those numbers, I didn't show you every store, just I wanted to show you TFAW against Midtown. But there were other stores that I would order from where the grade was actually similar to TFAW or even higher in condition, and my cost per book was much less. So that's where I ended up making the switch there. But just in terms of like finding back issues and ordering books in general, I think two are perfectly adequate in terms of being sources for great comic books, as long as you're willing to put up with some maybe moderate irritations as far as the bags and boards and the dings and damages occasionally that come in. And for me, this is why I like to track this data over time, because I think one bad order doesn't necessarily mean that it is a source that I want to throw out. It just means that I want to figure out if it was an anomaly or if it's a trend. And overall, I have fond memories of ordering from TFAW.com. One of the physical stores is actually close to me, and I did visit it one time, and it's a really fun, nostalgic store. It was real heavy on Funkos and t-shirts, not so much comics, but really thought the TFAW.com subscription service interface was the best. I did feel like the fact that you could navigate the system, pre-order books, subscribe to them, as if you were buying them, like it would completely drop off the website. So if you found a 1 in 100 and you clicked on it to pre-order it, it would not be available for anyone else. So there was a little bit of a race to find them, but it was a great source for pre-ordering retailer incentives, really great user experience on the website. And the other thing is they didn't charge you until the book shipped. So a lot of these places, they're going to charge you up front for a pre-order, and then you won't see the books for 2.5 months. So the whole process that I think TFAW had employed was a really good one, and I'll miss them. I hope that other comic book stores don't close up like this. I hope the hobby stays strong. But when those new retailer incentives hit, I'm going to have to find a new source to put in my rotation now that TFAW.com is no more. Thanks for watching. Happy collecting, and see you next time.